Okay. Hello. We're back again, today with a Dark Souls boss tier list. We are only going to be doing Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. I'm not doing Bloodborne or Sekiro or Demon Souls. Uh, I've played two of those three games, but I just don't want to do them for today's video, because, you know, this is probably going to be long enough as is. Anyway, now do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Pringle Pop, and I've played a decent amount of Dark Souls 1 and 2 and 3. I think a more balanced overall experience, but um, I'm not as familiar with Dark Souls 3 bosses as Saljay is, but I'm a little bit more familiar with especially Dark Souls 2, I think. So I'll also be here providing some insight.
Alright, there you go. Okay, so these bosses are not in order necessarily, just because it's the way of how the trailers were set up. I did my best though to try to put them in a decent position. I did at least separate them by game, so yeah, we're gonna start with Asylum Demon.
First boss of Dark Souls 1, and kind of the introduction, for me at least, to the bosses of the Dark Souls series. I think it is actually an incredibly well done intro boss. The whole setup with you seeing it at first without having the proper weaponry, probably dying to it, and then realizing you need to like run out of the room, and then going around getting the equipment and then fighting it again. I think it's an incredible, like, a really cool way of introducing you to the concepts of the series. You can go around and get more things to become stronger and come back and fight the things that were too hard for you initially.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think actually from like a game design standpoint, the Asylum Demon is incredibly well done. Like, you see it before you actually have to fight it, you know, you kind of know what you're up against. You run past it because you're weak and you have a crappy broken sword, but you can still beat it in theory if you're good enough, which I also think is good game design. And then later, if you know what you're doing, you can get the drop attack on him for extra damage to make the fight easier for yourself. And yeah, I mean, he's not even that difficult of a boss, but he kills you in like one or two hits, so he does teach you the mechanics of the game pretty effectively. Um,
And I think it also conditions you to think about the game in a certain way, not just play it in a certain way, rolling and stuff, but teaches you to really consider like gathering the resources and being more strategic about before you actually enter the boss fights, which is a lot of bosses in the game highly benefit from being strategic before you actually enter the boss fight.
true, true. So, the actual boss fight itself, to be fair, isn't anything special. He swings his hammer around a bit and, like, sits on you. But as an introductory boss to not just Dark Souls 1, but, like, the series as a whole, I think it's a great boss. Um,
It's a little susceptible to teaching players to just
put him in A tier.
roll behind and smack them in the butt.
True.
Which is something that a lot of Dark Souls 1 bosses actually have a weakness to, so it's maybe not even necessarily that bad of a thing there. But I think it'll come back to bite most players, and especially in Dark Souls 3, where a lot of bosses have a lot of disincentives to do so. So there
Yeah.
is that. But other than that, I think it's a really solid boss,
Where would you put it?
I would say A tier, yeah. I think it's not something where I go back to the game and be like, oh, this is like one of the best bosses in the game.
Uh-huh.
From a game design standpoint, the fundamentals that it teaches you are too good, and it's too like ingrained in the level and like the story of so many Dark Souls players, where that's
Yeah.
like the first boss they fight, and at first that seems impossible, but you come back and it's really easy eventually if you like play another game. It's so iconic that I can't give it anything less than an A, but I don't think it deserves an S.
Also, I guess on a small side note, on the basis of replayability, also, I think this is a pretty good boss. Because if you've done it a lot, you just run right through it and move on to Firelink Shrine. Like, it's out of the way. It's not annoying or anything. So there's that as well. Anyway. Alright, so now we have the Bell Gargoyles on here. I think this boss is a filter for a lot of new Dark Souls players.
I would agree with that. Interestingly enough, most of the time when I actually played through Dark Souls 1, I don't fight the Bell Gargoyles until after I've like done some other stuff, because while you can fight them incredibly early, the game gives you the opportunity to go down to Blight Town and like a bunch of other places in the map. You can go to Darkroot Garden.
True. If you
You
start with
know,
the master key, which you should
well,
if you've played this more than
you don't
once.
even need the master key, because you can go to the blacksmith instead of going to the gargoyle, and then go to the garden from there.
That's
And then
true.
from there, you can proceed through a lot of the game before you actually kill the bell gargoyles. So it is a filter for a lot of players, but I think a lot of them are tackling it earlier than you're mostly intended to on your first playthrough. I think that's one of the bosses that you might try early,
Uh-huh.
lose, and then it's recommended that you go do other stuff, like with the Asylum Demon, and before you can come back and beat it.
Yeah.
However, the boss itself, I think it's a pretty good boss fight. The only thing I really have a problem with is, I know it's supposed to be like difficult because it's on a roof and you could fall off the edges and stuff, but because of the angle of the roof and the camera, like the way the camera sometimes works in that game, and the way rolling works in that game, and you're locked on where you have to roll in cardinal directions, it's very easy to accidentally roll off the roof in that fight. And not in a manner where it's something that felt very fair, because a lot of the times that you have to do rolls because the gargoyles will zone you out with their flame breath, and then you get stuck in a corner, and then you have to roll. But if you do a roll, it's going to send you off the cliff unless if you unlock.
True. Also, if you started the game as a caster and you don't really know what you're doing, this fight's really annoying. Because you just run away from it, but the arena's not very big, and they catch you a lot. When there's two of them, it's like, oh, what do I do? You stand there casting for 10 minutes. It's just like, oh.
It's also a little bit of a DPS check, I think.
A little bit.
Where that boss fight gets a lot easier if you can rush the weakened one down first. However, benefits to this boss: Tailcuts, always super fun, and I wish they would bring it back in the other games in the series, but that's besides the point. Tailcuts is really cool. I think it's they're pretty balanced for a 2-on-1 fight, besides the arena being kind of annoying.
Yeah.
No, and it's cool. I think it's cool. They've got decent music. I'd say that I'd give them maybe a low B.
I'd give them a B. Yeah. I don't think they're bad. I think they're like reasonably fun to fight. They're not too hard. The arena's just kind of a piece of crap. You get launched off a lot. Especially when you're new. But you get I keep wanting to call him Sigurd because I've been playing so much Dark Souls 3. Solaire. You get Solaire there to help you with the boss fight as well if you've talked to him, which is nice.
If it's too difficult, you can summon Solaire. Of course, you have to know about the humanity feature to be able to do that, but if you do,
that's true.
There is help you can get for that fight. So,
yeah. So I think B is a good place for it. Moonlight Butterfly. Okay. I think this fight is terrible.
A lot of people think this fight is terrible, and I'm not going to say it isn't, but I will say it's not quite as bad as everyone makes it out to be if you play around it being a fight that is mostly ranged. It's a lot more interesting if you're playing a sorcerer or a pyromancer, or if you equip a bow, you can kind of shoot it while it's flying around, and
actually,
you get extra
if
damage
you play a sorcerer, it like absorbs all magic damage. So
it's pretty resistant to magic, but I think there are some spells that do some damage to it.
It's just really bad, man. Like if you have a dark sorcery or something, that's good damage. But like, magic.
If you have a dark sorcery and you're fighting the Moonlight Butterfly, you're doing the game pretty out of order.
You'll probably destroy it, but.
No, I remember I've played through the game with a mage, and it took more time than normal, but I could still kill it. And I think that this boss, my point here is I'm not arguing to put it like high. I'm saying it's not an F tier boss. I think this boss has some interesting ideas, and I think that it can be kind of fun if you're doing a ranged build.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a good bow, this boss isn't that bad.
Pretty much
especially because in Dark Souls 1 bows aren't that bad.
Yeah, well, every build except for strength, has some sort of ranged attack it can access at this point in the game, I believe.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Faith as well. Does Faith have a lightning spear at this point?
I don't think so, but I'm sure you could get it before Moonlight Butterfly. Like, this
Maybe.
boss is kind of out of the way.
Either way, there's a lot of options. You can throw fire bombs, throwing knives, bow and arrow, soul arrow, fireball is a really good option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pyromancy, I mean, completely makes this boss, like, you just walk through, kill it in one hit, and leave. Like,
I would give it a D. I would not give it an F, but I'll defer to you.
this boss is just so boring, man. Like, if you're going a strength build, you just dodge for 5 minutes, then you whack it once, do half its health, then you dodge for 5 minutes, then whack it once, and it dies. Like, it's not a good boss, but I don't think it's one of those bosses to where when I see it, I go, ugh, again. This is, you know, we're really close to bosses I would say that for. Moonlight Butterfly isn't one of them, though, so I'll put it in D tier. Like, I think this is a bad boss, but it's not the worst boss, alright?
By the way, are these tiers going to be ordered?
Yeah, I'll order them later, though.
Okay.
Especially because there's only one in each. At the moment. Ceaseless Discharge. Bro, I hate this stupid boss. This boss is so bad.
It is not great as the fight it is, and it being cheesable is honestly, in my opinion, almost makes it better because it means you don't have to do the actual fight. And the fight, I think the reason it is cheesable is because they realize the fight is awful.
Yeah, probably. The devs were probably like, alright, this fight sucks so much, you just gotta be able to just, like, win.
So, at least I can forgive them that they realize that the fight sucks and they made it easy to skip. But that doesn't mean that the fight is good, you know? Like, that it's an F tier boss. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't there. Like, every time I see it, I'm just like, I wish I could just not fight it.
It's got big unwieldy hitboxes. It's got really awkward, you know, like times to hit it. It's really slow, but it will just one shot you. Giant zones of death that you can't dodge, even though they've been you could see them coming from a mile away. It just is really not a great boss fight.
It's not. And there's a reason they kind of did away with the giant lame cheese monsters later in the series, because this kind of boss fight is trash.
I don't know what you're talking about. Wolnir's still in 3, but
you're right. Wolnir exists. Yeah, but
Wolnir. Okay, we'll talk about Wolnir when we get to
Wolnir. Yeah, true. Beta Chaos. I don't know if I have to talk about it.
F tier.
F tier.
There's literally, in my opinion, there isn't a worse boss fight in the series.
This boss fight, in my opinion, isn't even a hard boss fight. It's just bad. It's just like the difficulty is you fighting against the controls of Dark Souls 1. Like, oh no, I can't jump. Oh no, the floor fell. Oh, I'm dead.
And also the floor will collapse before you have a chance to react to where it's going to collapse.
Yeah.
Because it collapses underneath you.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it if it happens.
The first time I played through Dark Souls 1, I swear to God, I went through that boss, like, I tried to fight that boss like 20 times before I got it. Just because I kept on falling into pits, and it was awful, because you have to get to both sides to kill it in one go.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even make it easier that you've already done one side. It just... And you've got to wait on the slide every time. It lasts such a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a very... And it's not very satisfying to kill either. You just walk up and bop it once and it's dead. It doesn't...
Yeah.
Doesn't visceral anything.
I mean,
it's
you just whack it and it's like, oh, and then the whole thing like disappears in the mist. It's like, all right, well, thanks.
And it's such a letdown too from the lore, because from a lore perspective, the Bed of Chaos is such a cool fight. It's the witches of Islith morphed into this horrible monstrosity.
Yeah.
But it's pitiful. It's such a horrible fight. It's not satisfying. Easily the worst fight in the series, I think.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I think, well, okay, maybe not. I'm like, if Dark Souls 1, like, controlled more fluidly and had a better jump, like, maybe this would be an okay boss. But even then you'd just two-shot it and it'd be over, so maybe it would still be bad.
If Dark Souls 1 was more of a platformer and had like a dedicated jump button, then I would say it would be Ceaseless Discharge. What the heck? A Ceaseless Discharge tier. It would be a boss that is basically they realized it was bad so you could skip it. But
Yeah.
this was a boss that they didn't realize was bad and they didn't give you an easy skip for it, so now it's just awful.
It's kind of Seath, though, I like this boss a lot. I think it's really cool. I like the aesthetic. I like the lore. I like Artorias. I like wolves. I don't know, man.
Anything with Artorias related, man, it gets it. I'm gonna like enjoy it immensely.
Yeah, it just
Sif's
gets like
really
emotional
cool.
and
He starts limping halfway through the battle, or like not halfway, but towards the end of the
he's
battle.
also
It's
like
very,
the
very cool.
only boss fight in Dark Souls 1, except for like maybe Priscilla, that you don't actually even want to beat. Like, you know, you're just like, ah, dude.
Well,
Just let Sif win.
you know, to some degree, but also I think that this boss fight does have some failings, where it's really easy to just sit underneath it and smack
Yeah.
its legs, and it doesn't really have a lot of defense against that. It's
It
not
can
the
like
hardest
kind of
boss
jump
fight.
away, but yeah, it doesn't really hit you for it.
I give it an A in aesthetic. I'll give it an A in lore. I gotta give it a B in gameplay. But overall, if you average, it's great. I still think it's like a low A.
Yeah, I
Personally.
kind of agree. I think Sif is really cool, but the boss fight, like, it's kind of hard the first time, right? Because he's really fast, he does a lot of damage, but then when you figure it out, it's like really cheesable. And he doesn't have a lot of mechanics either. So, yeah, probably an A tier. I'm gonna put it below Asylum Demon for now.
I'd
But
agree with that.
we'll see. Demon Fire Sage.
So Demon Fire Sage
Bro, this boss sucks.
is basically Asylum Demon,
But now
with
he
some
has
added
fire
fire
moves?
effects.
Yeah, dude.
But they're not the
Wow.
like explosion fire effects that Stray Demon has. If you
Yeah,
correct
yeah.
me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're a little different. Demon Fire Sage is no longer teaching you how to play the game at that point, and it's not a significant enough upgrade from Asylum Demon for it to feel like a good comparison.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
I don't think particularly poorly of Demon Fire Sage, but it is a clone, which makes it a little bit. In my book, I don't mind clones as much as
I don't
most.
think clones are bad necessarily. We'll talk about it in Dark Souls 3 with Eudix,
We'll
but
also talk
like,
about it in Dark Souls 1 with Stray Demon because I
oh,
have a better
true.
opinion of Stray Demon than
But
this one. But
yeah, Demon Fire Sage. Actually, I kind of agree with that as well. We'll do Stray Demon next, just for the sake of the argument. But yeah, Demon Fire
sure.
Sage is just like Asylum Demon, but now he can like kind of tap you a little bit with fire, and if it hits you, he can combo you into like getting killed in one hit, and you're just like, all right, cool. But really, his mechanics aren't that complex, and he dies relatively easily. Uh, so I don't know. I'd put him in D.
I would put him above Moonlight
Moonlight.
Butterfly.
Yeah, I'd put him above
Yeah,
that too. Cause
yeah,
you know, at least you get to fight him.
yeah.
Taurus Demon,
Oh, did we want to talk about Stray?
Stray Demon, true. Thanks for reminding me.
No problem.
My attention span is extremely low. Yeah, Stray
Yeah.
Demon is kind of also just Asylum Demon, except now his moveset is like better and a bit faster.
It's got the
And
big shockwave energy waves that it lets out in a
yeah,
lot of the
yeah.
moves.
And he gets like a
Um,
big explosion thing that you can dodge. It's not just like a lame cheese thing.
I liken this a lot more to if you've ever played Hollow Knight, the failed champion. No, not failed champion. It's the very first fight in the game is False Knight.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can do a dream version of him, and it's the same fight, but tweaked a little bit. And you wouldn't think it would be that much harder, but it really does show how much just if you make all the moves a little bit bigger and make them move a little faster, how much more difficult the fight can be. And I think that
Oh, for sure.
unlike Demon Fire Sage, the way that Stray Demon is placed in that game, where they're back at Firelink Shrine again, it really shows how far you've improved since the start of the game, and it's a really important like narrative beat, not in the story of the game, but in the story of the player's experience of the game, where you realize
Yeah.
how much better you've become. So a lot of people diss Stray Demon because it's kind of a clone, but I think it's actually an important inclusion in the game, and it adds a lot to it. I would put it in B tier, but
I think it's cool where you find it too. Like lorically, it feels good to fight. Demon Fire Sage just feels like, alright, this is a lazy clone. Stray Demon feels like, oh, like this is like a meaningful addition. And essentially, they're the same boss. I wouldn't even say Stray Demon is super hard, but in a way, right? I think a lot of that is because you're a lot stronger, you know, as well, which
yeah.
is another cool like aspect to this boss. So I don't know. I'd put it in B tier as well. I like Stray Demon.
All right.
Now Taurus Demon. I think this is probably the easiest boss in the game. This boss is like mega free.
I mean, Asylum Demon is probably easier than Taurus Demon, but
I guess if you get the drop attack on Asylum Demon, like you definitely take him down way easier. But
I think
Taurus Demon just like
Taurus Demon is really free if you take the opportunities to drop attack him. But personally, I actually find that the fight's kind of fun if you don't do that. If you just clear the archers out first and then just fight him on the bridge.
Yeah,
I've done
I
that a
guess.
couple of times, and it's a really good thing to teach players how to roll early,
True.
and dodge certain things. I actually think Taurus Demon is not that bad. Personally, I think it's like a C tier boss. I wouldn't like say it's like a great boss, but I certainly don't think it's a super. Even though it is used later on in the game, I think its placement in the game is pretty cool, and I like that fight.
The part when Taurus Demon first shows up, like you're walking across the bridge and he just appears on the top of the tower in front of you and he like jumps down and charges at you. It's a really good like first impression moment. Like if you're a new player and you see that for the first time, you're like, holy crap. And like probably 8 times out of 10, he'll knock you off the side, off that first attack when you see him for the first time. And you'll be like, oh man, like that sucks. I just lost all my souls. I had to do this whole run back through the Undead Burg now. It's just like, ah. And for that, I have to respect it a little bit. But once you know that you could just use lightning paper and literally like kill this guy in 3 auto attacks, it's like, eh.
Well, I think it's actually really important for the pacing of Dark Souls 1 2 that this fight is kind of cheesable because of, like I said earlier, how once you get to the Undead's church, the game opens up a lot.
True.
And this guy's kind of keeping you away from that point in the game.
Yeah. I think
So
it goes a
the
long way
fact
towards
that-
replayability as well.
I think that being able to fight him normally on the bridge is actually a pretty good fight, but I think it's important for new players to be able to cheese him with the drop attack or to use a lightning paper and kill him in only a couple of hits. I tend to not do those strategies because I think it's more fun to just fight him normally.
Yeah.
But I could totally see where this boss fight needed to be cheesable to some degree, so that people could get to the point in the game where they could summon other players, where they could farm a bunch of different areas for good things, you know, and really get their build going before they actually tackle the more difficult bosses in the game.
That's fair. I mean, granted, another argument could just be he could not be there. But
he could.
He's all right. I don't hate him.
I'd give him a C tier.
I'd put him in C as well. Maybe I'd put him in B. When the tier list is done, I'll think about how I really feel about all these placements.
Yeah, he's either high C or low B. I agree with that.
Pinwheel. Hot take, I think is kind of cool.
Well, I certainly believe that the lore is cool and the design is cool of the fight.
Yeah.
And I think that the even the moves that they use in the fight are really cool. The problem is they just forgot to give that boss any health.
Yeah, no, I think the lore is cool. I think some of the moves are cool looking. They're not very complicated.
Well, like the entire thing where they create clones is like it makes it pretty difficult. And I've actually fought that boss very early a couple times, and it's kind of challenging. But to be frank, if you've managed to get through the catacombs at a low level, then that boss is going to be like kind of difficult. But the area you got through to get to him is going to be very, very difficult. And if you don't, if you get there much later, that boss fight is a joke.
The thing is I think they designed him to be fought at probably around the same time as like maybe the Bell Gargoyles, but the because you know right upon starting the game you can go down there and fight him, but the area, like the skeletons themselves, even in Firelink, and the area to get to him is way harder than he is. So
Yeah,
doing
well,
that early is so hard, and then you fight him, and it's like kind of an okay boss fight if you fight him really early. But
yeah.
it's
I
just it's
The
weird.
other another note is I always get the mask of the child, which always upsets me because I always want the mask of the father. Come on, giant dad.
True.
Um, yeah, if you're very experienced in the game, you can fight that guy early and get the oh, I forget the name of the item, but it lets you uh kindle your bonfires up to 20 Estus,
Yeah.
which can make the rest of the game kind of a cakewalk, especially if you put that in some very key locations. Um,
You could fight Moonlight Butterfly by just standing in front of it and chugging Estus until it lands if you have 20.
yeah, pretty much. Um, it's pretty severe. Man, I wish Pinwheel had more HP because I think that fight actually could have been kind of cool. But
Actually, I think
unfortunately,
the other way around, right? I think the skeletons should just have less HP, and then
you
they
think
should just let you go there as the first area if you want to.
I think that would also be cool too. That would open up the game quicker. On the other hand, then you would go from a kind of easy starting area immediately into the hardest area in the game, Tomb of the Giants. So that might be a little iffy.
That's
Um,
true, but you can't actually like go through Tomb of the Giants until you've talked to Guinevere, right? Like it doesn't let you
no,
finish
you
it.
can. You can. You just can't get to Nito.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, Tomb of the Giants.
Tomb of the
Oof.
Giants.
That's an oof.
I don't know. I think there's some things about the design of that area too, like with the traps it has there,
Yeah.
and like the exploding skulls, and like just the layout, which is more complex. Where I don't think it's really that fitting of an early game area.
Well, it could be still like harder to do early, but I wouldn't mind if it was like possible to do right after fighting Asylum Demon.
Either way, we're not talking about Pinwheel here. So we're talking specifically Pinwheel. I think it doesn't fit the area he's in very well. And
Yeah,
I
I
think that
agree.
if he fit the area he's in better, either by having more health or being in an easier area, he would be a cooler boss fight.
Yeah, but
I would give him D tier, maybe
yeah,
low C.
I'll put him at the top of D.
I think top of D tier is a pretty fair spot. He's like Moonlight Butterfly. He's a boss that has interesting ideas and could have been really cool, but stumbles a little bit in the execution.
Yeah. Uh, Manus. This is
Manus?
kind of a strange point to rate Manus, but I'll do it anyway.
Okay, go.
Oh well, you know, you had a point. Go on.
Manus is I really like Manus. Um, I don't like the fact that you have to have the item equipped to survive certain attacks. The Silver Bell, I think it is. But other than that, his design is really cool. He's in a really cool arena. His fight's very difficult, but pretty fun. I would say he's one of the better bosses in Dark Souls 1, but definitely not the best in the DLC.
I think Manus, like his lore is awesome. It carries over to Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. He's probably like one of the most important characters in the lore, to be fair, because he's, well, the father of the Abyss. And I don't know if you know this, but the Abyss is a very important like thing in the Dark Souls lore. He has really cool looking attacks. He looks really cool. But I kind of think his fight's a bit of a gimmick fight. Like, I don't
Okay,
know.
interesting.
It
Is it
kind of
because of
reminds me
the
in a way of like Aldrich, where like kind of sometimes he just like hits you with a million things and you die, and it's like all right. And in Dark Souls 1, I think you have even less tools to deal with them.
well, there's the item, the silver pendant is what it is. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
The silver pendant that you're supposed to get, that the entire like DLC is a journey to get the silver pendant so that you can use it in the fight to
true.
block his waves of attacks. So there is specifically a tool that is designed for that boss fight. Now I think the boss fight would be better without that. It's a cool idea, But I think that this boss fight would be cooler without it. But I actually think that beyond that, just his moveset is very, very fast. But I think about as challenging as you can make a boss fight in Dark Souls 1 without it being ridiculous and over the top.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate Manus, but I actually don't think he's that good of a boss fight. I'd probably put him like in C tier.
I was gonna put him in A, so you want to maybe put him in
I'll
B?
I'll,
Or
I'll
still
even
in
it
C?
out. I'll even it out. I'll put him in B. I'll put him at the
Okay.
top, dude. Just because I think he looks cooler than Bell Gargoyles, and that's it for right now. Ornstein and Smo. This is a boss fight, once again, that I think filters a lot of people. And not only that, a lot of people think is the best fight in Dark Souls 1. I've heard it a lot.
A lot of people think it's the best fight in the series, even.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this fight's amazing. It's so cool. It's like, it, in theory, right? The fight diverges based on your playstyle. So it's kind of unique in that regard. It's
I don't know. 9 times out of 10, most people kill Smo before Ornstein.
yeah, I mean, true. True and real.
Just because of the way that you separate them out and how that fight takes out. Now, I will say, especially my first playthrough of Dark Souls 1, I actually did not struggle that much with this boss. Unlike most people, I've gone through on subsequent playthroughs and it's been a bit more difficult. But I don't think this fight was particularly difficult for me because the arena gives you the tools you need to survive the multi-man like gang squad that they are. Basically, it gives you pillars to separate them out. Their moveset pushes them apart, which I think really does gameplay wise. It's really rewarding for more patient players. Players who wait for the gaps and are used to fighting multiple at once. If you're the type of player who shoots every enemy in the entire game with like a bow or like uses a throwing knife to lure them out one by one, this fight is going to be one of the hardest in the game because you can't do that. But if you've gotten used to fighting multiple at a time at this point, this fight isn't the worst. It gives you a lot of tools to be able to beat it. It is difficult. Don't get me wrong. It took me. I mean, some of my attempts have taken me more than a handful of tries to beat it, but I certainly don't think it's this end all be all hardest fight in the game.
Yeah. You could say like my experience with this is tainted if you'd like, but when I did Ornstein Smo for the first time, I was watching Epic Name Bros like from the Dark Souls 1 series, and I was pretty much the entirety of my first playthrough was coinciding with his series. It's really good, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But essentially, I saw a guide for Ornstein and Smo before I did it, and I beat it first try. Which, you know, once again, you could say is tainted. It's not real skill, but I still did it. I didn't think it was that hard, nor did I even think it was that cool. IMO. I think the design of Ornstein's nice. The design of Smo is dumb as hell, but I mean, I think that's the point. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good boss. I think it's better than a lot of bosses in Dark Souls 1 as well. Also, like Pringle Pop was saying, like on other playthroughs, Ornstein Smo was a bit more difficult for me than the first time. It would take me like 3 or 4 tries instead of just 1. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I will say though, game design wise, I think they are clever. In the fact that they work the way they do, and the like splitting paths, whether you have like electric Smo or big Ornstein. I think those are cool. Like things that you can do with that fight. The pillars that break and you separate them out with are really clever. I would say that this is a very good game design wise. I think it's honestly, I don't actually like their design like visually as much as maybe some of the other fights in the game. I would say this is either top of B tier or low A tier. Now, I feel like it's a little sacrilege saying top of B tier, but I just...
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a little overrated. in the fact that I think a lot of people would put them in S tier. So I think putting them at the low A tier is just
I mean,
hipster enough to where I get out of this with my life.
yeah, okay. I'm probably overcorrecting if I put them at the top of B tier. I'm looking at this and I think they're probably top bottom A tier. I would say. I don't think they're bad by any means. I think they're very good fight. I just don't think that they are the peak of what Dark Souls has to offer. And I actually think gank fights in general don't tend to be the peak of what Dark Souls has to offer, because I think that a
Yeah,
very focused one-on-one is the ultimate experience, like the best boss fights
of
in the game.
course.
But we'll talk about
Usually,
that a lot more in Dark Souls 3 and in the DLC of this game.
yeah. A lot of people's favorite fights in Dark Souls are the ones that are like more human-sized, faster one-on-one fights. Like, and I would have to agree
Like
with those
Capra
people.
Demon. No, I'm kidding.
Like Capra Demon. Centipede Demon is the next one, actually.
So full disclosure, I think both of us had to look up a video of what this boss fight was like, because I only remembered the arena.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember what the actual attacks. I do remember that you can chop off one of the heads of the Centipede Demon and get a ring, I think, for it. But
yeah, this fight's kind of bad. The arena's bad. Its attack patterns are like really obvious.
I think that it would be a cooler fight if the arena. Once again, this is another fight that is very limited by the arena, but I think it needed to be limited by the arena, but not to the degree that it was. Because I don't think the fight would basically not be a fight at all if you could just walk wherever. But I think that it's so crammed into the corner, it makes it really awkward to take that fight normally. So I wish there was a little bit more room.
Also, this is another fight, I suppose, opposite to Moonlight Butterfly. If you're doing a sorcery build, this fight is like instantly over. It's this guy gets annihilated. But yeah, I don't know. He's fine.
I would qualify this as a D tier fight. I think that it is once again a fight that has some cool ideas. It's got the head that can chop off. It's got the limited arena, but I wouldn't put it as even a high D tier boss. I would put it below like Demon Fire Sage. But
I guess
maybe there. You could put it above Demon Fire Sage. I don't think it's as good as Pinwheel though.
No, I don't think so either. But I just
there's less
Demon
unique
Fire
stuff for it
Sage
to
I think
give.
is more boring. Like I think this fight is worse, but Demon Fire Sage I just like my eyes glaze over.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, anyway.
Seath.
Sweet, yeah.
Alright, I know you have a bit of a different opinion than me on Seath, but I think Seath is kind of just a badly designed, boring boss fight that's just a gimmick fight, and you just like whack at his head every so often, and it's like, wow, cool fight. Yeah.
I think Seath. I don't think Seath is that bad. I actually think Seath is kind of cool. I do. I like the whole story beat where you can't fight him, you can't beat him the first time you fight him, and then he like traps you in a cave. Like it really like at this point in the game, you're so used to whenever you die, you just go back to the last bonfire that it really like throws you for a loop when that happens. And you're like, oh crap, all my souls that are on me are actually like gone now. Like where the heck am I? I think that's a really effective moment. I think that the whole having to break the crystal first it's a little silly once you figure it out, but it is kind of a interesting thing. And his first encounter really wouldn't work without that.
Yeah.
And I enjoy tail chopping. I don't know. I don't think this fight is some amazing fight, but I certainly don't think it's like a gimmick fight like you do.
I think Seath is not a good fight, but I love his lore and like his aesthetic, you know? Like he invented all the crystal sorceries essentially, and he also is responsible for like in big part like the Age of Fire, because he betrayed the dragons, because I don't know, I think they like all bullied him for being naked or something, and he was just angry, so he sided with the gods.
All right, here's a way I can talk about it. Maybe change your mind about this one. I think Seath is a good execution of what Ceaseless Discharge and Bed of Chaos are trying to do, where there's like big areas of danger that you're supposed to run around and dodge, and that's what Seath is, but it's actually executed well, where it feels like a boss fight and not just like you just randomly get killed.
All right. I do think Seath is a better boss fight than Ceaseless Discharge and Beta Chaos, but I just think that type of boss fight is bad.
Maybe, but I think that it does have some uniqueness. I certainly wouldn't put it. I think it would be. I would put it maybe low C, but if you think it's like D or even F tier, I could see where you'd want to put it.
I
like
wouldn't
D
put
tier.
Seath in F tier, but I'd put him above Pinwheel probably.
Okay.
And I guess if we're adding lore and not just the fight, I'd put him in C tier because
let's
I
put
just
him in
think
low
he's
C
cool.
tier, I think, because I've been also qualifying some of this off of, because if you're just talking about from a gameplay perspective, I think Orange Demon and Smo are higher than where we've put them, and I think Sif is lower than where we've put him. But we're also including,
Yeah.
you know, lore and aesthetic and
Yeah, I think
more
that too.
intangible things beyond just the gameplay.
Which I think, you know, to be fair to Seath, his is good in that department. So yeah, I'll put him in C. Capra Demon, this fight is really bad and really easy, and if you don't know what you're doing, you just get instantly gibbed by dogs 40 times in a row and makes you throw the game into a trash can.
So you want to talk about filter boss fights? This is it. This is the filter boss fight from Dark Souls 1. I know a lot of people talk about gargoyles, Ornstein, and Smo. I'm of the opinion that Capra Demon is significantly more people threw in the towel with this game at this, because not only is it really, really hard, but it also feels so lazy.
Yeah.
It feels like such a horrible thing to die to. I have this saying for Dark Souls in general, where one dog is like a pretty easy enemy, and two dogs is the most difficult boss fight in the entire game. It's like the hardest fight because they'll tag team you, and it becomes really awkward to try to fight them, and they'll stagger attacks. It's true in this fight. It's true in, you know, Dark Souls 3, especially in Dark Souls 3 because they can teleport. But even in Dark Souls 1, they realized rushing you down with dogs and like an awkward camera angle at the beginning of a fight is a way that they can get kills out of you early, and it feels very unfair. This is easily one of the biggest reasons people stop playing Dark Souls.
I agree. I think like Ornstein Smo is one of those fights where people just they can't beat it, it's too hard, or they might like not be able to continue. And like Capra Demon's one of those fights where they just lose and then they just don't open the game again. They just don't want to. They're just like, alright, this game's bad.
Yeah. Now I'm lucky, I don't think I've ever struggled too much with Capra Demon.
Yeah, once again, because I've been
saying a lot of the times with a lot of these boss fights, I didn't struggle too much with that. That'll change when we get to some of the other boss fights, especially in 3, especially in the DLC. But for now, Capra Demon, I didn't struggle with too much, but I game design wise, they're terrible. Lore wise, they're not that cool. Aesthetic, you're just in like a dusty old closet of like a boss arena.
Yeah.
Easily one of the worst boss fights in Dark Souls 1, especially considering that, you know, Taurus Demon's very similar to them in the fact that they're an enemy that comes back later, but also Taurus Demon feels like a good fight on its own, and Capra Demon doesn't. I would put this low D, if not F tier. I would put, honestly, I would put F tier.
Just because, alright. Once again, like, my first Dark Souls 1 playthrough was tainted by the fact that I was watching a series while I was doing it. And even then, I beat Capra Demon on like my 4th or 5th try. But, you know, every subsequent playthrough afterwards, it was first try Capra Demon. Which I think it's designed really badly. But I think F tier is designed for just bosses that, they're so bad that I literally don't want to replay the game because of them.
I would say Capra Demon. I would say I would put Capra Demon. I mean, once you learn how to deal with them, they're not that bad. But I never want to fight Capra Demon.
True.
I'm never like, ooh, Capra Demon. I can sometimes think that Moonlight Butterfly or Demon Prince or Centipede Demon or even Pinwheel, I think that those fights, even if they're easy or even if they're not very balanced, I could sometimes get value out of them. I never get value out of Capra Demon, personally.
I think that's fair. But I can't in good faith say Capra Demon is as bad as Ceaseless or Bed of Chaos.
I think it's definitely better than those two, but I definitely think it should still be F tier. Like, consider this: is there any ideas that Capra Demon brings to the table that are worth, like that were valuable? Like, I still think that Moonlight
No,
Butterfly
but I don't think
and these
Demon
other
Fire
ones.
Sage does either. It's just Demon
Yeah, but
Fire Sage isn't bullshit.
Demon Fire Sage is just really boring. I'll be honest. Other than Centipede Demon and Pinwheel and Moonlight Butterfly
They bring
are
something to the table.
are bring something to the table. They're flawed, but they have an interesting idea. Demon Fire Sage is incredibly like mundane. Capra Demon is worse than any of those.
He is kind of just a guy with 2 swords.
Plus, I'm gonna be honest. There's not that many really bad bosses in the series left. I think you're gonna need some more bosses in F tier.
Look, I
You
would be
don't need to
totally fine with having a small F tier.
All right.
I don't need to populate it, especially because guess what? S tier is vacant right now.
Well, that should change.
It'll change reasonably soon.
Yeah, reasonably soon.
Because I do think there's S tier bosses in Dark Souls 1. We just haven't gotten to them. And we still haven't gotten to them because Priscilla is kind of a lame gimmick fight. But
yeah,
she
I
cute
don't think
though.
I've done this fight more than once. The aesthetic is good.
I do this
Yeah,
fight every
think-
time I play DS1 just because I like the painted world.
I like the painted world. I do the painted world, and then I like never end up fighting her. Because
Oh, you just
they don't
accept
choose-
her thing to leave.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
I mean, to be fair, that's probably what you should do because there's like no reason to kill her, and she's not like a
Yeah.
bad person like Freed is. So
It's kind of like the Sith thing where why I don't really want to win the fight because I don't
Yeah.
really want to do the fight, but they actually give you the option to just skip the fight, so I don't really often.
but you
it.
can cut off her tail for a weapon. So
That is true. Not the worst. I would honestly put this as a C tier fight. Like,
I would too.
it's definitely not as flawed as anything in D tier, but I don't think
I'd
it's
put it at the
anything
top,
particularly
even.
special. Yeah.
This
I would
fight's
put it
not
top C
great,
tier.
but it's not bad. You know, it's all right.
Mhm.
She's kind of just like Beta Freed, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, the invisibility mechanic with the footprints is really neat, but it's kind of because they're entirely invisible. Like you can't really stop their like see what they're actually attacking or how they're actually moving.
yeah, I
See
mean,
where they're at. It doesn't really give you a lot of
you
information. to work with.
probably won't lose, but it's just because the fight's not that hard. It's not because it's designed well.
Yeah.
Iron Golem. I don't know if it's an intended mechanic to knock Iron Golem off the side and instantly kill him. But it is one that I think is really funny and I like a lot.
I'm gonna be honest. Iron Golem is probably one of the bosses that I would inflate the actual value of the most, just because of the area they're in. It really feels like a crowning achievement after having summited the heights of Sen's Fortress of the challenge of that area, and then there's this big dude at top. As long as you've killed the giant, that's so he doesn't hurl explosion bolts at you behind you. But I think this fight's really cool. I think it's really menacing, but you've put all this other stuff behind you, and then you just went through a really difficult area, and you just go in and tackle it, and he might yeet you off a cliff. But unlike the gargoyles or Centipede Demon, I think that the size of the arena is reasonable for the fight, and it makes it more tense without it being like you're always one hit away from getting knocked off, or one bad roll away from getting knocked off. I actually enjoy Iron Golem a lot. The mechanic where they knock down, I like the big shock waves are really cool for the point in the series we're at, because in Dark Souls 1 there aren't a lot of like sword projectile attack characters, or I guess axe in this case. Yeah.
I think
Lore-wise, this boss is like a 0. Like, who really even thinks about Iron Golem being an Iron Golem at the top? Like, why is it
Yeah,
Iron
I mean,
Golem
fair.
sense? There's no reason. There really isn't a reason. But once again, in the player's experience, the fact that this fight's a little easier compared to some of the stuff you've fought so far, but it's still kind of challenging and still really risky because you're near the edge, but you can take it out. It really makes you... That's the point of the game where you're at an emotional high.
Yeah.
Going into Anor Londo, and it's because of Iron Golem. And I think Iron Golem is actually a great boss. I would give it an A.
Not to mention the NPC there that you get to summon, who's an absolute legend, whose name currently escapes me, but you might remember.
Iron Tarcus?
Yeah, Iron Tarcus. The homie Iron Tarcus himself, alright, comes in and just absolutely, it's hilarious, because pretty much all NPC summons in Dark Souls games, excluding maybe Man Scorpion, and this one, are pretty useless. Tarcus will legit solo Iron Golem if you just summon him and sit at the back of the arena. He will kick his ass. It's hilarious. And, yeah, and you can knock him off, which is really funny and cool. And not only that, I think it's really fitting that, like, a lame-ass boss that just picks you up and yeets you off the side and kills you. Like, it's so perfect for Sens. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, kinda.
So,
I don't know. I actually
like
really
him.
like Iron.
I like
I'd
him.
give him
I'd
an
put
A
him... I think I'd put him in B tier, to be fair. It's because he's not that interesting. He's cool. I like the fight, but I don't know.
I'd put him below Ornstein and Smo, personally. But if you want to put him in B tier, you can.
Well, I'll technically put him below Ornstein and Smo.
Alright, alright. Manus being that low feels a little off, but...
Bro, I think Manus is a great fight. I gotta be honest.
Alright, Calamity.
Calamity is a shitter. You go to this area and you're like, ooh, treasure chest, and then you instantly die to a dragon. You're like, oh, cool. And then later on, you see this really cool giant who shoots him down. He's like, I'm the sickest sniper that ever lived. And it's like, okay, cool. And then you can fight him. And then he's like actually really easy.
I don't think Calamity's easy. That grab attack is really nasty, and it doubles the damage. It basically makes you one shot for like a long time.
That's
after
true.
The grab attack. Nothing they do besides the grab attack is that nasty, but that grab attack, man, is really hard to dodge. It's really hard to see coming, and it is very, very scary because it makes you can take a hit from them and then like roll away and heal most of the time, but not if you've been hit by the grab attack. And the buff lasts for a really long time. So I would say this fight is actually one of the hardest fights in Dark Souls 1.
I heard that you could fight Calamity without talking to the giant, but I don't think you can.
I don't know. You might be able to shoot them down.
Maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I heard that and I'm like, wow, that sounds insane. Like, how could you possibly win? But like, I've since done it a couple times. And boy doesn't land. He doesn't have a boss health bar. He just shows up, one-shots you, and leaves. So I don't know, man.
The getting the Obsidian Greatsword is also very difficult. There's another Tailcut.
That's true.
Very difficult.
Okay, admittedly, if you go for the Obsidian Greatsword, this fight is a lot harder. Like, it's really not easy to cut his tail.
On the other hand, this is a pretty good dragon fight. It's much better than the Hellkite Wyvern in Undenburg.
That's true. I think Calamity, though, like, despite me saying that he's not that hard, he does kind of have that grab mechanic that's dumb, and cutting off his tail's really hard. And I still think he's a good boss fight, even despite that. I don't even think he's bad. Like, his arena's big enough so you're not necessarily fighting the camera the whole time. Having to get to him is kind of annoying, but, you know, there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not as related to the boss. I would say, I don't know, this is a hard one to place for me, because I think as cool as it is, like, it's a dragon, you know, that people like that, but I struggle with it because I think that it's a little cheesy, this fight.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would maybe put it a low B. I don't think it's as mundane. It's too cool just by the nature of it being a dragon that you like it gets shot down and it's got like that crazy grab attack.
Yeah.
And it's one of the cooler big fights. It's one of the more difficult fights, and by the nature of it being more difficult, you have
Here,
to put more effort
probably.
into it. Yeah, I'd say that's reasonable.
Yeah, Calamity's pretty neat. It rhymes, so it must be true. Uh, Sanctuary Guardian. I 100% forgot that this fight existed, and then I remembered he existed, and I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of wish I forgot he existed, because this guy's kind of a big asshole.
I think this fight is actually really good. It keeps you. It's a very aggressive fight. It keeps you on your toes. Um, I kind of think it's placed a little early in the DLC because it's the very first thing you go to in the DLC, and it'll gate you off of a lot of content that you would be able to do otherwise if this boss fight wasn't there first.
Uh-huh.
But for something this large, being this aggressive and mobile compared to everything else you fought about, that's roughly the same size in the main game. Like compare this, I'm pretty sure Sanctuary Guardians like only a bit smaller than Sith, but
Yeah.
it's so much more mobile and so much more aggressive. It really shows you like the change in tempo that the DLC is going to have. It really sets the pace. I do think it's a little difficult for where it's placed, but I do like this as a fight.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I lost to this guy so many times. Like, I kind of have beef with him. I kind of want to just put him in F tier because I hate him. But, yeah, I mean, he's not that bad. He's really not that bad.
No. He definitely doesn't deserve F tier. I would honestly put him higher than Calamity. Weirdly enough, I think that he's B tier, but I think he's like a high B tier. I think he's a pretty good boss fight. Sure, go ahead.
All right, we were talking about Sanctuary Guardian. Sorry, pause the recording for a second, but we're back. I don't know. I think everything that was needed to be said about this boss was said.
Yeah. Well, besides where we're putting them.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I would honestly almost put them in A tier. I think they're a really good boss fight, but I understand that you do not like this fight.
Bro, I think this fight's just too hard.
It's really hard, but I think I mean, okay. I tend to think fights that push you to your limits and really, are really aggressive, and fights that are really hard and make you try a bunch of times, but because it's a hard fight, not because it's cheesing you, are good fights generally.
I mean, I like farts. Yeah, I like farts. I like fights that are hard, but like,
keep that to yourself.
Once you've done them, you go through it again. It's not that bad, It's like, because you've mastered them. But the first time, it takes you like 10 tries.
Doesn't do that. This fight is hard every time you go through it.
Sanctuary Guardian doesn't do that. This boy just claps your cheeks every time, and you're like, oh good, I died again. This stupid ass Manticore. I don't know. You would put him in A. I'd put him in C, so we'll put him in B.
Alright, fine.
Where does he go?
I think he's better than Calamity for sure.
Fine. There you go. Sanctuary Guardian.
That seems about right.
Gaping Dragon. Bro.
Gaping Dragon is a joke fight.
This boss is so lame.
They look horrifying. Visually, that's such a great design. It's like really like a nightmare fuel. Unfortunately, it's one of the easiest bosses in the game, with the slowest moves, and is in an arena that's so large that any of its moves that would normally back you into a corner don't, because it's in the biggest boss arena, and I think the entire game.
Yeah, no, I just think this is a bad boss. For several reasons, really. But
I like how it looks. That's about it. I would say this is a D tier boss.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I will say it's a fight that is supposed to be done earlier on, so it's supposed to be easy, but it's not interesting. It's just walk away from it till it slams down and then just bop it in its little head.
Yeah.
And just do that a bunch of times and just try not to get like puked on with this puke move. Yeah.
It has like 3 moves. One of them lets you whack its head for like a quarter of its health bar. And if you don't do that, it's pretty much just an ankle slapper for 5 minutes until it dies. And if you don't roll out of the way, it like one-shots you with a move that's like super slow and telegraphed. And honestly, I think kind of has jank hitboxes, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Gaping Dragon just is bad. Like they must have just forgot about it in dev or something. Like I don't know, man.
I don't think they forgot about it in dev as much as they forgot about Beta Chaos, but
Okay, that's reasonable. Knight
anyway,
Artorias, baby, hell yeah,
hey,
baby, hell
this is
yeah,
our first
baby.
S tier. We have no calls here.
Yeah, don't have to say no to that. This is a fight that's
Us,
hard. This is a fight that demands, especially in Dark Souls 1, demands a lot out of you because a lot of the fights in Dark Souls 1 kind of reward a defensive, slower, meticulous playstyle. And Artorias makes it to where if you play like that, he'll shit on you 100 times in a row and you will never win.
yep.
I think he's a great fight though. He's really cool.
I think that this boss fight set the tone for a lot of the fights later in the series to come because it did so many things right.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now they did have the benefit of learning from all the other bosses in the first game, but to be frank, I don't think any of them do what Artorias does in the first game. Like Artorias literally feels like a Dark Souls 3 boss in Dark Souls 1. It's super
Yeah,
ahead of its time,
true.
boss design wise. Where all of your focus is just on this one entity who's moving really fast. You have to time everything, memorize its patterns. It'll whoop your ass. That fight is really hard, especially for that game. But boy, is that a satisfying fight. Is that a
Yeah,
satisfying kill. The lore behind it is incredible. The arena is really cool. The visuals are awesome. The actual mechanics are the tightest in the entire game.
for
Artorias
sure,
is an
for
S.
sure.
Artorias is the second best boss in the entire series, in my opinion.
I think so too. Maybe third. We'll see when we get to it. But
Oh, okay.
Artorias is great. Also, just another like comparison. Sanctuary Guardian is a fight that I'll lose to 100 times, and when I beat it, I'll just stick my middle finger out at the TV screen and then like piss on my Xbox. And then
My
Artorias is a
God, all
fight
right.
I'll lose 100 times to, and when I beat it, I feel good. Like I feel like I'm a cool gamer that did something cool, you know?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I like Artorias. Uh Gwendolyn. This isn't a fight, bro. This isn't a fight.
It's just running down a hallway and then they teleport further, and then you run down the hallway and they teleport further. It's
You like have to hit them like 4 times. God forbid you don't have a lot of AR on your weapon and you're literally chasing this guy for like an hour.
or you don't have a lot of stamina and you like can barely catch up to them half the time. I've
Yeah.
done this fight not a ton, but every time I've done it, it's been real annoying, and I've not enjoyed myself too much.
Yeah, this
I like the lore of the fight. I mean, I keep saying this a lot of times. There's
Yeah.
very few bosses I've said where their lore is not exist. Like Iron Golem has no lore, but like most of the bosses have lore.
Mhm.
Gwendolyn is neat. What happens after you kill them is really neat. Where everything, the entire place goes into shadow mode.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
The idea behind the fight is kind of cool, where he's like a master of like illusions and like teleporting and stuff. It's just there's not much content to there's just not much meat to the fight. Once
Mhm.
you run up and hit him, you've hit him. It's
Yeah, so I mean if you just go the classic Dark Souls 1 build of pump everything into strength and endurance. This boss you kill in 2 hits and it's over, and you just hide behind pillars for 2 minutes, and it's not a good boss fight. All right, the lore's cool, but I don't know. This is a D tier fight for me.
yeah, I'd agree. I would put them below. They're
Probably
I'll put
Moonlight.
them below like Centipede Demon or something. Maybe I think they're better than Moonlight, but not by a lot.
Yeah, I mean they have kind of the same problems as Moonlight in a way, but
Yeah, but they've got better lore
that's true. That's true.
and kind of a better concept, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also killing them's kind of neat. Like the fact that it affects the world is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, technically killing them doesn't affect the world, it's killing the illusion of their sister or whatever.
It affects the world. I get you.
Four Kings. Bro, if I rated this boss just based on the arena, I'd put it in the F tier. Okay.
Because it's pitch black.
Yeah, this boss is a major DPS check too.
It is.
Uh
I actually visually, I really like how they look. They're really weird, but I kind of really like it.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
I
I
don't
like
know.
how they look too.
Four Kings is a fight that if at one point in my life, if you asked me, I would put them in F tier. And then I've played the game a little bit more, and I've come around to Four Kings a lot more. I think I would put them. I don't think they're excellent by any means, but I think that they're beyond D tier. I think that they've got enough unique stuff going for them, and they're interesting enough that I
Yeah.
would say that they're like a low C tier boss.
I actually agree. I actually really like what's the name of the zone after New Londo?
After Valley of the Blue Drakes,
No, the one where you fight the Four Kings in. You
the
like
Abyss.
drain New Londo. Yeah, the Abyss.
That's just more of
Yeah.
New Londo. Yeah.
Well, it's cool. I like that area a lot. I love the feel of it. I love the like
Mhm.
Black Knights, and the
Dark
Dark
Wraiths.
Wraiths.
Yeah.
It's like it's so cool, man. And like even getting to their boss fight to me, I think is cool. I like their lore. I like their aesthetic. I just think their boss arena is trash.
Hmm.
Um, but I'd put them in C at least.
I would put them in the C tier. I think that there are major problems with the Four Kings, but I think that they bring even more to the table than somebody like Pinwheel or Centipede Demon do, and they don't have quite as many of the big flaws.
Yeah.
Unlike C tier is going to be generally just like bosses you feel like whatever about, like medium about. I
Yeah.
don't feel that way about Four Kings. I just feel like the good things about Four Kings about balance out the bad things about Four
No,
Kings.
I feel the same way. Four Kings is not a boss
Yeah.
fight that you fight and you're just like, It's just like, okay, there's some cool things here and some not cool things, so
Yeah.
it evens out, I think. Nito's just Nito's another boss fight, in my opinion, that just isn't a boss fight. You kind of just like fight skeletons for 20 minutes and then instantly beat Nito because he has like one move. Bruh.
I've my experience with Nito was different than I think a lot of people's was, but I think that's because Nito's AI will do different things depending on where you position in the boss room. Because he'll
Uh-huh.
do the ground slam with the Gravelord sword sticking out of the ground
Yeah.
attack, or he'll do that big AOE a lot. If he does a big AOE a lot, you just run behind a pillar or just shield it and then hit him afterwards. It's really easy because you'll kill all of his own skeletons. But if he does a bunch of other attacks, the fight can be a lot more intense, and you'll have like an entire army of skeletons running after you as you try to like loop around and get openings to whack Nito.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I think this boss is Nito overall. I would consider very RNG dependent. His entire the difficulty of that boss is very dependent on what moves he chooses to use. Because one of the moves makes unlike most fights where if that's the case, it's because one of the moves makes the fight a lot harder. This is one of the fights where one of the moves makes the fight a lot easier if you use it a lot.
that's true.
So I don't
Uh,
know.
I don't know, man. Every time I fought Nito, it's just devolved into him walking around in circles. And then I try to chase after him, and then he just AoEs me off of him, and then I get mobbed by 30 skeletons. And then
I
I
love the
die.
design. I love the design of Nito.
Oh, so do
Um,
I. I like the
and
aesthetic of the area and how he looks is like really cool. Even if the Tomb of Giants is the most shitter area in the game, probably, except for maybe Lost Islith.
yeah, I would say that Nito is definitely about as good as I could expect from the boss of the Grave of the Two Giants. Um,
But yeah, I don't know. Nito himself is kind of cool, but I just think the boss fight's annoying.
yeah, I would put him about with his with his mini boss Pinwheel.
Yeah, I would too.
Roughly in the same area.
I'd probably put him above Pinwheel.
Yeah,
Because I
I'd
think
say that.
his
I'd say
lore is
agree.
probably a little cooler, his design's a little cooler, and his boss fights, I mean, a little lamer, but you one-shot Pinwheel, so, like, can you really even call it a boss fight?
Yeah.
Uh, K-Log, or Quelog, the actual way you say it,
I actually really like this fight. It is a really weird like turn because you don't expect to be fighting like a lava-based fight at the bottom of Blight Town, but I think the moves are really cool. There's a really cool aspect where it's a kind of a big arena, but the arena is dynamically changing based on where there's like lava in the arena,
Uh-huh.
based on where the boss is attacked before. Um, their sword swings are a little jank sometimes, but they make you roll. They make you dodge them pretty much. You can't just space about. You have to actually dodge most of the times, especially with their stab. It goes really long range, which I think is good. It makes it more engaging.
Hmm.
I think Quel'Thog's a really good fight. I think it's one of the best fights in Dark Souls 1, actually.
I think as a caster,
Mechanically.
this fight's actually like really fun. It's
Mhm.
kind of easy because you don't have to deal with the lava as much, but I think it's actually really fun as a caster. And I think sometimes if you go the classic Dark Souls 1 build of pump endurance and strength, um, you can kind of get screwed by lava placements sometimes, and you just can't hit her for a while, and it's just
But you just you
annoying.
just you just have to wait it out for a little bit, and part of that is you can basically like designate where they're going to use a lava attack if you position correctly in the arena. I
That's
think they have a
true.
lot going for them. I would say that I would put them as an A tier boss personally. I think they're one of the best bosses in Dark Souls 1.
I like
Um,
Kellogg or Quellog.
they're they're a little I think unlike Ornstein and Smo, I think Quel'Thog is a little under what's the word?
Underappreciated.
Yeah, underappreciated. Yeah,
I agree.
people don't realize the design chops that went to Quel'Thog is really good.
I don't know though. I think personally I'd just put her like right above Manus here, but I don't know. Like I like Kellogg. Bro, I'm gonna always say her name wrong every time I say it.
Quelaag.
Thanks. But
Kellogg's cereal.
Kellogg cereal. But I don't know, man. She is a good boss fight. I'll give her that. But I just don't think she's like great. She doesn't do anything amazing. And like the
I
area she's in's a little weird. Like
but
she's a
that's kind of how I feel about Ornstein and Smell, where there's really not anything they do amazing, but they do everything well, and I think Quelaag is the same thing personally.
yeah, I kind
Um,
of agree.
I think I would put them at the bottom of A tier, but if you think that they'd fit better in B tier, be my guest. I'll defer to you. It's your list.
Uh, all right. I'll put him at the bottom of A tier for now. If she
We can
seems out
we
of
can move them
place
around. Yeah.
afterwards, I'll move it down. Gwyn, it's hard for me to say if this is top of A or S tier.
In my opinion, this is an S tier fight. Easily. This is the only other S tier fight in Dark Souls 1. Um,
I
its lore isn't
I'll agree with you.
super important. I would give this an A tier off of the music alone.
Okay, I
Because
pling pling plong, baby.
Plim Plim Plon is so iconic and it's so powerful because for the rest of the game it's been these big orchestral band noises when you enter these boss arenas, and then you get to the last thing and it's this sad dying the last vestige of this old world.
Yeah. And
And
it's a
it
good
starts
fight
playing
too.
this melancholy music, and you just realize the weight of the entire game that you've played so far. It's so good. It's a pretty good fight. A lot of people say you can cheese it if you parry. I think that if you're that good at parrying at that point in the game, whatever, you
Parrying in
deserve
general in
to.
DS1 is like a little too strong, I think, but
But I think the part of the point of Gwyn is that it's not supposed to be the hardest fight in the game. It's not supposed to be easy by any means, but it's definitely not supposed to be the hardest fight in the game. Um, because it's supposed to be this cinematic moment, and if it was very very difficult you might get stuck on it a little bit too much and it wouldn't feel as satisfying, which we'll get to later with a certain Dark Souls 2 king. um being a little too but yeah, I think Gwyn is incredible. I would put Gwyn as an S tier boss, if
yeah,
not just for the music and lore alone, but
the
I think the fight is
aesthetic,
also
even just like usually runbacks I'll use as like something against the boss, right? Like, oh man, I hate this long, annoying run back. I think Gwyn's is like so aesthetically cool that like I want to do it almost whenever I die to him.
yep.
I think the biggest problem with Gwyn, though, like you were talking about Hollow Knight earlier, is probably the same issue that, like, the Knight has. Well, not the Knight, the Hollow Knight himself, you know? Uh,
A
it,
bit too easy as the final boss because of it has to be like a emotional moment. They don't want to spoil it as
well, it is an emotional moment, but I think it's like you've beaten the whole game already, and if you're not like doing this on a replay or you don't know exactly what you're doing, you'll probably be over leveled or you'll have like a +10 like great serpent great sword or something, and you'll like you know, you'll beat him relatively easily because of that. Which is a bit of a shame, but I think despite that, he's a really good like cool boss.
I'd agree.
And now I'm gonna play the Majula theme.